All right, hey everyone, part two, screening now. Screening is the process of using tests on a large scale to identify the presence of disease in apparently healthy people. Screening tests do not usually establish a diagnosis, rather the presence or absence of an identified risk factor. Individuals going through screening usually aren't sick, so screening tests should not cause them harm. So that's a concern with some forms of imaging. Are we giving people too much ionizing radiation exposure? There is mass screening, which aims to screen the whole population or a subset of it. Multiple or multiphasic, which uses several screening tests at the same time. Targeted screening of groups with specific exposures. And case finding or opportunistic screening aimed at patients who consult a health practitioner for some other purpose. Table 6.4, these are recommendations, requirements for instituting a medical screening program. Not something that we are worried about with our primary roles. The screening test itself must be cheap, easy to apply, acceptable to the public, and valid if it correctly categorizes people into groups with and without disease. Sensitivity, specificity, we're aware of that. Again, the sensitivity is the proportion of people with disease in the screened population who are identified as ill by the screening test, and specificity, the proportion of disease-free people who are identified by the screening test. Okay, Chapter 7, Communicable Diseases. Here are the key messages, not going to read through those. Communicable or infectious disease is one caused by transmission of a specific pathogenic agent to a susceptible host. Infectious agents may be transmitted to humans either directly from other infected humans or animals or indirectly through vectors, airborne particles, or vehicles. Contagious diseases are those that can be spread between humans without an intervening vector or vehicle. Malaria is a communicable disease, but not a contagious disease. Measles and syphilis are both communicable and contagious. Epi has a role here, obviously. It developed from the study of outbreaks of communicable diseases and the interaction between agents, hosts, vectors, and reservoirs. The ability to describe the circumstances that tend to spark epidemics in humans, like war, migration, famine, and natural disasters, has increased human ability to control the spread of communicable disease through surveillance, prevention, quarantine, and treatment. An epidemic, that's defined as the occurrence of cases in excess of what is normally expected in a community or region. When describing an epidemic, people will describe the time period, the geographical region, and particulars of the population in which the cases occur. An endemic, this is a disease, it becomes endemic when they have a relatively stable pattern of occurrence in a given geographical area or population group at relatively high prevalence and incidence. Malaria, major health problem in low-income tropical countries. If conditions change in the host, the agent, or the environment, an endemic disease may become epidemic. For example, smallpox. In Europe, it worsened, went from an endemic to an epidemic during World War I. Pandemic, of course, we're familiar with that. P for passport. Pandemic is an epidemic that has checked its bags, has its frequent flyer miles, and is ready to rock and roll. Chain of infection, communicable diseases occur as a result of interaction between the infectious agent, the transmission process, the host, and the environment. The control of communicable diseases may involve changing one or more of the aforementioned components. The thrust of communicable disease epidemiology is to clarify the processes of infection, to develop, implement, and evaluate appropriate control measures. Knowledge of each factor in a chain of infection may be required before effective intervention can take place. So, some different considerations within the chain of infection. Looking at transmission, various modes of direct and indirect transmission. The host is the third link in the chain of infection. This is the person or animal that provides a suitable place for an infectious agent to grow and multiply under natural conditions. Points of entry to the host vary. These include skin, mucous membranes, respiratory tract, and the GI tract. Consequences of an infection are largely determined by the host resistance. Resistance is usually acquired through previous exposure to or immunization against the agent in question. The environment plays a critical role in the development of communicable diseases. For example, sanitation, temperature, air pollution, water quality. Also included in this, socioeconomic factors like population density, overcrowding, and poverty. All right, that was just a quick run through of this chapter. The rest of the chapter discusses things like the investigation and control of epidemics and surveillance. Things I think that are interesting, especially if you ever wanted to go on and become an epidemiologist, but a little bit outside of our purpose for this course.